We're now live streaming. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the May 20th Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. For the record, I'm going to introduce those that are in attendance for the town. For board members, we have Joe Rosito, Chuck Abbey, Don Snyder, Don Bloss, and Mike Marizio as the ad hoc. Cindy Chamberlain is our planning board clerk. Steve Procopio is Director of Code Enforcement. Mark Parrish is the engineer for the planning board. Neil Germain is the attorney for the planning board. Nancy White, are you here, Nancy? Nancy is our ad hoc. I don't see her yet. Judy Boyke is a member of the town board and she is in attendance. And my name is Mark Marzullo. I'm chairman of the planning board. The applicants and their representatives will be introduced during their respective agenda items. With that, I ask that you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Rosito, would you please lead us off?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe.
Mark, Nancy just joined in.
Hi, Nancy, welcome. For the record, Nancy is in attendance now. The approval of the minutes. Is there anybody here that would like to have discussion for the minutes from the May 6th meeting?
Yes, I have just a couple of quick ones, Mark.
Yes, Don Snyder.
On page 4, down near the bottom, it said also add some plantings along the road, not around the road. That's what we were talking about, the yard. And on page 5, in my comments, near the bottom of the page, it's CO, it should be C of O for certificate of occupancy, what that stands for. And also down below, it says we do have a fill permit requirement should be in there in our town for more than 10 yards. Those are the two little corrections for me.
Cindy, you got that? Any other comments from board members? Do we have a motion to approve as amended?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Seconded by Mr. Bloss. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey? Mr. Abbey, Mike?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Abbey votes yes. Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Next, as always, the planning board will accept comment from the public on any active application currently before the planning board. Due to the fact that this meeting is being conducted virtually, anyone wishing to comment on any active application should make those comments to the planning board in writing. Written comments should be communicated to the planning board by email communication, fax, or postal service. And that information you'll find on the town website. We'll go on to the first item on the agenda is Serenity Living in the Hamlet. This is for the property at 9592, 9598, and 9610 Brewerton Road in Brewerton. This is a proposed mixed use, apartments and commercial. The applicant has been before us before, and my understanding is that today we're here to talk about some non-conforming uses and whether or not the planning board can or will approve those non-conforming uses.
Good evening, Tim Coyer, iNewsy and Romans. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
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 Yeah, specifically,
Yes.
Not much has changed with the actual layout of the proposed use of the site. Because it's in the hamlet, we're running into some code stuff that I wanted to get verified so that when we start moving forward with any more work, whether or not we have to go through variance process or can we continue with the site plan process with the planning board. We just didn't want to do too much more with the site plan if we had to go through variance still. So I wanted to just bring these up. These are on Mark Parrish's comments as item 1. in A. It's not non-conforming uses. It's non-conforming
Items.
items, I guess. So specifically, like per the code for the Hamlet district, you're supposed to have a lot width of 150 foot maximum lot width, and right now we're going to have a 422 because we're going to take all these 3 existing tax parcels and combine them into one. So we have one existing parcel as like it's going to operate in all by itself. We do have an existing building that's 5.5 feet from the existing road boundary versus 6 feet. That's an existing situation. I don't know. We're not creating that. I don't know if we can go through with that. The frontage build out is a 50% minimum versus 34% that we have. Again, this comes into play because we've got the 422 foot of road frontage versus the 150 foot of frontage that's required. Basically, in the hamlet, the code says you want like thin lots or smaller lots as far as road frontage, and the buildings are supposed to take up most of the frontage. And there's also the parking front setback, 20 foot versus 4.7. Those are the 3 parking spaces on the southerly parking spot on the existing parking area on the south side of the lot. So those parking spots are 4.7. I mean, and the requirement is 20. Again, a lot of this stuff, I just want to get verifications. I was talking with Steve. There is possible language in the code already that allows the planning board to possibly forego the variance procedure and let us go forward with the site plan procedure. But just want to get it clarified before we move forward and waste too much time.
Tim, thank you for that. So if we can take each item, start with lot width.
Yep.
Neil, I know that you had sent some communication.
If you'd like me to discuss it, I can go through your options here.
Yes, please.
Okay, so what this comes down to is they're looking for some existing nonconformities from the bulk regulations, and from the planning board's perspective, what they're asking is there a mechanism in the code with which we can use to not force them out to get a variance for these nonconformities? There's 4 of them that Mark identified in his comments. Now, Section 21092 of the code allows the planning board with a finding to approve a plan such as this with nonconformance to the actual bulk regulations. The planning board's finding would have to be that, and I'll give you the criteria. There's 4 things. 1, your proposed construction will result in a general improvement with a lot in regard to safety, access, sight lines. 2, non-conforming signs and lighting brought into conformity or more closely to conformity. 3, landscape would be improved. And the 4th one, which is the only one here that's not really subjective, is there will be no increase in the non-conformity. Okay, so you would apply those 4 items to each of the nonconformities. Okay, and there's 4 nonconformities. And if you want, when you start out with the first one, and the reason why I said that number 4 of those criteria is not subjective, you get to the first one and it's lot width 150 to 420. They're increasing the lot width. That runs afoul of number 4, that there will be no increase to the nonconformity. So for that one, in my opinion, they would have to go get a variance. The other ones, the other 3, are things that the planning board could opine or make a finding that based on section 21092E, they wouldn't have to get a variance for the other 3 items.
Thank you for that. Board members, are there any questions for Neil based on what you just heard? So yeah, I would agree with that lot width, that would need a variance if the planning board does not have the authority to allow that to happen based on the language that's in the code. Any input, gentlemen?
The lot width, aren't they increasing the width, not decreasing it?
That's correct.
that results in a larger nonconformity.
Wait, who is speaking? I didn't,
That was Neil.
Well, Joe Rosito asked the question.
Yeah, Joe, okay. Thank you.
So Joe, this is Mark. In the overlay states there's a maximum lot width, and they are expanding on that nonconformity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Neil, are we just having input here? Do you want formal votes on each one of these? What's the best way to handle this?
The best way to do it would be for you to get a general feel. If you think that, you know, that the building line, which is the second one, the front build out, and the parking setback numbers 2, 3, and 4, if you feel that those, you know, result in the project from those perspectives result in an improvement to the site plan, the non-conforming is more nearly conforming, and the landscaping meets your criteria, number 4 you're okay with. So if you wanted to have a motion to have that finding, you would take those 3 items off the board for the applicant, and the applicant would only have to seek a variance on the first issue.
So those last 3 are all existing, and they're not increasing on the nonconformity.
Right. So those are within your preview that you could, in fact, have a finding, and at that point the applicant would not have to get a variance on those issues.
But Mark, on the parking thing, shouldn't we in fact move those parking spots back so there isn't a problem?
We have that authority.
You have that authority.
Yeah, I guess if I could,
there's nothing we can do with the building 5 feet off the line. It's there unless we make them tear down part of the building, which doesn't make any sense. So that one, you gotta let that one go, obviously.
I agree with that.
yeah, I guess let me just comment on that too, since Don's brought that up. Although I think you can find that they don't necessarily need a variance, my recommendation, and it's in our comments, would be that that they do bring that into better conformance to increase the setback. And right now, the way that is set up, it's just got one wide, uncontrolled entrance onto Route 11. And also the parking layout really is not very well organized. So I really think they should make an effort to, one, bring that into conformance with the code requirements, 2, reduce the width of the entrance onto Route 11, and 3, provide a more organized, better layout for the parking area on that side. I was going to bring that up, but since Mr. Snyder's brought it up, I guess we probably should give the applicant some direction as to what the board thinks about that issue.
Yeah, well, Don Snyder, one of the things, the parking lots between the 2 different locations, I think the one next to the large building, I think we talked about something like 16 employees or might be in there, and we talked about the apartments. I don't think there's enough parking at the building, so the whole thing should probably be pulled back and enlarged anyway. So I think there's some real issues relative to the parking and who's going to use what part.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with those comments. Mr. Rosito, anything on the parking?
I agree. Just the only one would be the lot width, I believe.
Well, the lot width we've determined we can't address.
I mean, that's the only one that we can't do anything about.
Right. So it sounds like we have 2 issues, and anybody that would like to speak up on something different, we have an issue with the lot width and the parking. The building line, the 5.5, anybody have an issue with that?
No.
No.
In the frontage of the building, which is already existing, not much we can do about that. Everybody concur?
Yes.
Yes.
So Neil, based on what we've heard, it sounds like, the first item and the fourth item are not going to be approved by the planning board. And the second and third will be.
Right. I would recommend that we hold up on a finding for items 2 and 3, because what you're really asking for is for the parking lot is that be reconfigured. And
Correct.
after the applicant reconfigures it, it still might be non-conforming. And at that point, if you're happy with the reconfiguration, you could say, okay, we believe this is more closely to what conforming would be. And then you could make the finding and have them avoid the variance on that issue. So I would recommend that you actually put off the findings until you see that reconfigure.
Tim, are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. No matter what, we have to definitely go in for a variance for item number 1. My thought is I'm going to bring that southerly parking lot into conformance so that we don't have to deal with any variance for that one specifically. So I'm going to try and make that one just comply with the code no matter what. That way, when we go in for variance, we're only going for one variance, and it'll be hopefully a quicker process.
Okay. All right, good. We're all on the same page. And that concludes this item, correct?
Yep. I really appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Tim.
Next item on the agenda is a minor subdivision preliminary final plan. This is for Anthony Melfi, the property at 6 Broadhead Drive. This has been in front of us before. We had a public hearing that was closed at the last meeting. Now up for discussion is the subdivision. The applicant is with us, I believe. Is there somebody here representing Melfi?
Yes.
And your name?
Anthony Melfi.
Good evening, Anthony. Board members, are there any questions for the applicant at this point? Mark, do you have anything?
I do not.
Neil? Are you good? Neil, could you propose a motion to approve the subdivision as presented?
Yeah, first we're going to propose our standard seeker motion.
Joe, would you propose the standard seeker, please?
Yes, I propose our standard seeker motion in form of motion.
Do we have a second?
Second, Chuck.
Chuck Abbey seconded it. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the seeker passes. Neil, the motion, please.
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as minor subdivision preliminary and final plan, Anthony Melfi, 6 Broadhead Drive, 2 lots. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following. The applicant is hereby advised that pursuant to section 185(6) subsection F of the code, the applicant has 90 days from the approval to file the map. If the applicant misses the 90-day filing deadline, this approval will have expired. 2, the applicant is further notified that the chairman of the planning board may delay signing of the final plan until the chairman verifies that the applicant has executed any and all necessary undertakings or agreements with the town.
That is in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm sorry, Mark. Mark?
Yeah, Mr.
Mark,
Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Mr.
I apologize. I do think there should be something in there about the DEC wetlands or the wetlands adjacent to the site. That is in our review letter. And again, I apologize for not bringing this up before you made your motion, but
we can add it as a third.
Yeah. So did you mention that in the requirements, Neil? Did I miss that?
No, but I'll put it in there right now.
Okay. So the DEC wetland map shows that there are wetlands that encroach onto the property pretty significantly. The federal wetlands do not, and I think that those are really closer to what the actual wetland boundary is. So I think what's shown on the state map is incorrect. However, even if that is the case, the site is within the 100-foot buffer of the wetlands for the DEC. So what we're recommending is that a concurrence relative to the need for a wetlands permit for development of the property be obtained from the DEC and the Corps prior to, I guess we would say, issuance of a building permit. So I would recommend that requirement be put into the resolution.
Mark, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Neil, can you amend the motion?
Yes. Number 3. I'm going to read right from Mark's comments. The limit of the New York State or the NYSDEC wetlands do not appear to be correct. It is recommended that the NYSDEC and USA COE be contacted to discuss the wetland limits and information obtained and provided prior to the issuance of a building permit. So the applicant shall be responsible for obtaining whatever necessary permits from the New York State DEC and USA COE prior to the issuance of any building permit by the town.
And I will make that in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I also, should we address park fees as well?
Yes.
Yes. Number 4, applicant shall pay applicable park fees of, Steve, what are they, 500?
Per lot, yes, sir.
500 per lot, or in this case, $1,000.
Thank you, Steve. And that's in the form of a motion. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rosito. We'll call Mr. Rosito.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next item is for Barone Garden Properties, LLC. This is for the property at 6200 654 South Bay Road and 8108 Thompson Road. This is for the proposed garden center parking expansion. The applicant is with us.
Mike Lassell, MBL Engineering is here.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are we doing, guys?
Good, how are you?
Good.
You want to review with us the modifications that have been made since we last met, please?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what I was thinking. That's probably the best way. So you see it's up here. A lot of it was some minor things that we changed around. We added all the landscaper and we added all the planning schedules on it. Do you think we should just go right through the last list, the May 6th letter, or do you want me just to kind of overall just give the changes? Because there's probably like 5 made changes and then we kind of can tell you what we adjusted that way. It's probably the best.
Go over the changes.
Okay, so the major things was we did a planning list and worked with John to get that planning list where we need it to, so you can see what's being placed on that site. There's a chart on the bottom, so obviously that's his forte. So we've got a lot of mixtures there, and I think it looks great. So that was the one thing. The big thing that we want to talk about is really, I don't know if you guys had a chance to review kind of the history letter, and that kind of breaks out the business organization and what every piece is for. The project history use is kind of what I called it. It's kind of like a very large statement of use, I guess. Yeah. We just wanted to kind of give you every aspect of this business because there's a lot of things happening out here, just so you can really get a feel for the businesses that are going on with the retail, the bistro, and the tasting area. So, and I think that's critical to this next point where we talked about the requirements of paving areas, and that's the thing we want to look at. This plan that you guys have up is probably the most important plan to talk about, where we kind of left last time with requiring pavement for everything, or we showing a gravel originally. So what we've done is, you can see this green space game area has shrunk towards the building a little bit, and the reasoning for that is we turned the parking so we didn't go away from the building so far. So before, there was no parking down that entire south edge. If you remember, the islands just kind of ended, and that was just a drive area. I don't have an old plan in front of me, but that's so what we've done is now we've double parked that area so that drive aisle has parking towards, you pull in towards the south, yeah, right there. So by adding that, it added a lot more spaces, and it was able to pull up and lose some in our splines. But our critical path thing was we wanted to look at the busy season, and you can see how we outlined that. Obviously, their busiest season is May and June. That's when they get that big overflow use. But the other 90%, or I'll call it 75% of the, well, 80% of the time is the retail, the bistro, the tasting area. We wanted to get on paved parking areas, and that's not his critical path item. So we showed full asphalt on that front area where you can see, and we show a 63 parking spaces proposed on asphalt, which is the key. And then striped with islands on that left-hand side. So, and then the remainder of it to the east there, where that May, June time where he has those events and that springtime sales and stuff like that, is where we have the millings shown. The millings for him make a lot of sense because obviously economy of it, and then the ability to treat it as an overflow. We really like the idea of the millings, obviously hardened up pretty nice, and he does stripe them now, but this is an area that's not necessarily plowed all winter with parking on it. So we have our 80% of the year parking, which is standard, and then we have this overflow that I think serves his businesses pretty well for what he's trying to do. Then that last little bit is really a truck turnaround. So the reason why we did pull that last parking in, because that last day before was really just to supply an area for him to back to the loading dock. That's right there where it says loading dock to remain. It's actually a little bit north of that, but it's right there. So that's where that truck turnaround area is. He treated that so much as overflow that he knew his truck that came in there, I forget exactly, 1 or twice a week. He wasn't concerned because whenever that truck came, he wasn't having, it wasn't June or May where he had a lot of cars parking. It wasn't coming on a Saturday or Sunday to get to that loading dock. So now we've actually labeled it as a truck turn area just to show that. So we still show we have 111 parking spaces, which is about what we showed originally. But because we rotated that parking and pulled it back, we're still fitting that many. So we really, that's the biggest change that we've kind of worked to the middle. We got rid of the gravel. We went to the recycled asphalt and portions of it for overflow for the 2 months out of the year. We figured it wasn't during plowing. It wasn't during an area where we couldn't have it striped and it wasn't working well. And then we gained him his majority of his parking that he needed in that asphalt area out front of the building, which works out well. And that really serves his business nice in terms of what he's looking for. And I think the breakdown in the seating area really falls into, having 63 spaces really serves nicely. I think your code doesn't specifically tell you the amount of parking required for the uses, but it fits nicely where he feels it's covering his normal bistro, his normal tasting room, and his retail customers, not during May and June. So I think that was one of the larger changes that we approached from this last time. And then another big one is the subdivision. So we talked with Iannuzzi and Romans, and what we've done is the power lines. And I think if you go up one sheet to C001, this is the sheet we added to help give an overall view of the property right here. So this is a request from last time. So you see that big utility easement on the south side here. You can see it on the south side, don't get turned up. So the south side, which is the right of the page, that utility easement, that is now the new property line, right? So we combined that new lot that he purchased with that all the way up to the property line, which is a really nice boundary for the property. And we got rid of that little parcel. So that one that says property line to be removed, that used to be that little tiny parcel that was non-compliant. Now we have one larger parcel. Setbacks are more than met by doing that. And we did add the bulk regulations on there. It's now a 17.6 acre parcel. And then those numbers that are there, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are just, if you did have a chance to read that project history, where it refers back to those, just if anybody had questions, it really is nice, area 1, what it is, the section, area 2, the greenhouses, area 3 being the production, or being the retail greenhouses, 4, the production greenhouses, 5 is his agritourism area where you can have some mums and you can do stuff like that really to promote that feel of handpicked type stuff too. So I think this helps kind of pull everything together for you guys to see the site as a whole. There's a significant amount of land out there, obviously. So I think those, I'm just looking at this letter back to Mark. Seating, statement of use, name of owner is on the site, existing minor site. Yeah, and dumpsters were added. So I think that's pretty much really the major kind of 4 responses back that we had from the last time to try to address the last response or comments that we had. So is there any specific questions or discussions that we want to do in terms of parking and stuff like that you guys have?
Is there enough handicap parking?
Yeah,
Steve, what's the requirement?
It's one for the first 25, I believe. I'm pulling that requirement up real quick while we're talking about. Yeah, I believe I show 4 now. So we have a total parking of 111, and that requires 4. And hold on, 4, 5. So 5. So we should look at that because I'm not the overflow. So it depends how you look at it. So that might be a comment because when we added that, when we did that extra parking, it actually gained us some overflow parking. So 1 through 25 is 1, up to 100 you need 4, and we show 4. We added 2 new ones from before. He had 50 spots before. He had 2, which was code. 4 take you up to 100. We're showing 111 right now. So I don't know how that works with the Disability Act in terms of overflow parking for events if it does require adding that additional.
Steve, can you answer it?
I don't know that there's any differentiation between overflow and.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on, Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, people need to give me their names because on my screen I don't have everybody's pictures and I can't.
Yeah. So, hi, Cynthia.
This question is from Mr. Rosito.
Yep, Joe Rosito. My question was, is 4 enough? I mean, overflow is overflow. I'd rather be safe. I mean, a lot of places you go to, it seems like there's more handicap than you need. I would not want to be short.
Right. Yeah, we can make that a condition to add 1 more ADA parking space. And that takes you up to 150 parking spots.
Joe, anything else? Again, the millings always seems to be an issue. Now the overflow, you're calling that the overflow. Is that going to get plowed in the wintertime?
Hey, John, you might want to weigh in. The intent was that our primary parking where people are parking would be the blacktop area, where people are using the blacktop area for the parking during the wintertime, because that's not obviously his busy time. But in terms of plowing it for his own use or just keeping it opened up, John, you might have to dive in on that one.
Yeah, we will probably plow that because we do need to bring the equipment through there anyways, and that will also be almost like a service road to get around to the back too. So it will be plowed in the winter.
Oh, I know it's always brought up whenever there's millings. It's a plowing issue. I haven't plowed in years, but I know Mr. Snyder has, and he usually a little more insistent. I'm sure that's going to get ripped up, whether you're parking on it or not. If you're plowing it, it's going to get ripped up and then restriping again in the spring.
Yeah, that would definitely be restriped in the spring, but there also has to be a line between where the production starts and the retail stops, and that needs to be somewhere, and that seems to be the most logical place to put it because that parking will not be used virtually at all in the winter because the paved parking spaces will be plenty for the non-peak times.
Don Snyder here. Joe, I totally agree. I'm betwixt and between on the millings area. It's one thing to say that it's only going to be used during the summer when it won't be plowed. I don't know. I mean, we're thinking about our people in the community that are going to come to this facility. We have not allowed, I believe, millings to become a parking lot, whether it's an extension of parking lot or an overlot or whatever. So I've got to be convinced on that issue. The other issue I have is on the driveways. The drawing does not show on the part that's north of the on South Bay that goes into the wholesale area. It does not show any paved area back from the roadway like we would require on any driveway or roadway going into private property. I think it's like 20 feet or something, isn't it, Steve, that we would require to be there?
The planning board has typically asked for the shoulder entrance from the road to be paved. That's correct.
Yeah, I think they
more like 40 feet.
Yeah, and one of the reasons the county does that too is they don't want to see stones and stuff, mud carried on to the highway. So I think we would want to see that in that other driveway. I'm assuming that the house that's next to the facility has its own driveway, or will it use the main driveway to get to the house?
That has its own driveway.
Okay.
Are there going to be events in the wintertime? Joe Rosito.
Not to the scale that there would be in the summer.
But there is going to be.
What do you call an event? I mean, we would certainly not have an event that would bring in 100 cars that, for example, a fall festival for mums, or, you know, there's several things we're considering to do in that area to the south. And that would be some of the things that we'd be doing. And that's where that parking is going to be used the most.
I don't know. I just feel that the overflow is your terminology, but I think it's going to be used at some point. And I mean, you're not going to tell people they can't park there. If you have more people than you anticipate, you know, where are you going to put them?
I think right now, John, just to confirm, the current overflow parking you have is riprap, or is recycled asphalt, correct?
What was that again, Mike?
The current overflow that you have, where we have the 10 or 12 spots, that's recycled asphalt?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah, so, I mean, that's what he's been using today. So his current, 14 spots he's got his overflow that we're counting the original 50. That's his current overflow. That is all recycled asphalt. And I'm looking at some images and some pictures here, and you can, I mean, it's striped. It's really more like asphalt than anything else, but I don't have any pictures I can share with you, but we can look at the aerials and stuff and look at that. And I feel like it's really satisfied the need for him now. But we're kind of trying to meet further and say, okay, let's pave that whole area, pave the existing recycled asphalt area, gain another 14, 15 spots, and then keep that recycled asphalt, just because it's been so successful for him today in the process. And other than that, he's parking on the side of the road in the grass. So we felt like it was a good meet in the middle to pave as much as we can for your everyday customer, and then in the few events where we have that overflow to use the recycled asphalt, just because, like I said, it's working. And you plow all that now, John?
Yeah, I do. And well, what we proposed here, I thought was a pretty good compromise, because of course I believe in having a paved lot, because I repaved the existing lot last year. So I agree with everything that's being said. And if things, if down the road we need to pave another part of it, we simply could. But I think what we're proposing is a real good compromise with everything, because the paved area will take care of 90% of any existing parking requirements, and it should take care of 99% of the winter ones.
And I guess my question too, and am I correct, your code doesn't specifically have parking requirements for this use? Is it really depending on what you guys decide, right?
Number of spots, that's correct.
Yeah, so yeah, which is different than some towns. So some towns kind of have a requirement. And then, so I looked at some other towns and said, okay, what is a typical requirement of a town in a restaurant? It's like 1 per 3 seats. And then in a retail area of 1 per 200 square feet. And if we did the calculation on that, the 63 that we show would meet that requirement. So I was looking at that alternative too, to say, okay,
Mike,
what's the use? Yeah.
Let me interrupt. for a second?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not the planning board's job to compromise. We'd like to be pretty consistent with everybody that comes in front of us.
Absolutely.
Whenever we talk about parking for public, we've always used asphalt, especially when it's marked. And I drive by the site a lot. I was actually a customer just a few days ago. I've seen numerous times where overflow parking was being utilized in the grass. So, I can appreciate the desires, but we're really not looking to compromise. We have our standards that we pretty much stick to. And I think we need a little bit more information. Can you kind of, let me just go through the rest of the members first. Mr. Abbey, have you got anything?
I was just going to had a question on the area of the loading dock. There's an existing loading dock, isn't it, John?
Yes, it is.
So at this point, how do you get your trucks back to that at the present time?
See, one of the objects is we're trying to steer any commercial traffic to the driveway to the north and get that out of the retail parking. Right now, it comes through the retail driveway alongside the building and then backs up to the dock. So we're trying to eliminate that.
At the present time, does that have that asphalt on it now then, or just stone, or?
The asphalt stops right, how do I describe where the asphalt stops?
Right where the, right where that, it says outside table area expansion.
Yes.
It stops right at the right dot of that. You can see the line there. It stops right there today.
So with the expansion, you're basically moving that truck traffic further south as well.
No, right now the trucks drive into that main entrance at the retail, and it drives along where it says wood fence. It would drive along that area, then keep going past the production brewery, and then back there. That's a good picture.
Oh, okay, now I can see better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good image too. That shows that overflow that he has currently striped too. The overflow is obviously the lighter color square.
Oh, sure. And then that's, well, I'm just looking, 2, 4, 6, 8, about 16, 18 spots right now. And
right.
Expanding to 63.
So now the truck traffic would be coming from the northern driveway, come from the back wholesale area, turn around that new turnaround we have, and then back to the loading dock and then leave and never go in the front retail area.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's why we have that larger turnaround area there. So.
Now that main driveway at present, isn't that paved, or is it the asphalt?
The main driveway is paved.
Okay. So that basically almost automatically qualifies checking conventions that isn't right. And another question, just curious too. I'm reading the family history, which is very interesting. The third generation continuing the farming business. You talk about the difference between serving, for example, sandwiches as compared to tables with tableware, which currently you don't have tableware. What draws the line between what is or what isn't?
Well, the way the SLA usually recommends food is that you have something where a tasting room situation where people are standing and walking around, which obviously may not happen now with all the new requirements that are going to happen. But generally, food that can be finger food, sandwiches, things that you don't necessarily need tableware for. Okay. Not that we don't have some food that needs tableware, but that's one of the ways they describe it. Because whenever you're serving any kind of alcohol, they like to see food involved for obvious reasons.
Okay, and that categorizes that as one thing as compared to a full-blown restaurant, or is that the same?
I'm having a hard time hearing you. What was that question again?
I'm just wondering how does that categorize compared to a full-blown restaurant?
couldn't answer that. I don't know. We're
Okay.
A bistro or a type of a situation like that is pretty common in farm markets and garden centers, and we're trying to tie in the whole agriculture with it, with almost with farm to table type of things.
Sure.
You know, for instance, right now we've gone into vegetable production along with everything else that we do, and that is all tied in with having a bistro in the farm market and tasting room.
Okay. I was just curious on how that compares to like the brewery out in Clay there next to the tracks. They couldn't serve food inside, I understand. That's why they had to have a food truck outside to qualify.
Well, I guess they don't have a sewer system there, so they're not able to put in anything like we're doing.
I was just curious why the difference. And they don't brew there either.
No, that's another reason why they can't either. That's kind of a satellite of another farm brewery.
That comes in out of Buffalo, I believe, area. Okay, thanks.
What was that again?
Their beer comes in out of Rochester, or no, Buffalo area.
I think it was Chatham, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Yep.
Bloss? Don, have you got any questions, Don Bloss?
No further questions at this time.
Mike, I couldn't find the statement of use. We had asked for like what was going to happen in the green area, the band activities, how often. I could not find that.
So I referenced it to on that document that we did. So we provided it in an overbearing or an over information of statement of use. It has all the store hours and everything in a 2-page document that was provided.
Not on the plans anywhere, because it had mentioned the statement of use was on C004, but
okay, let me just jump. It wouldn't be on C004. So we get into the seating area and the business uses on C001, where we talk about retail area for gifts, souvenirs, crafts, food and drinks, farm market, retail area, greenhouse production area, and then farmland area, where we break out each section of the business and with the hours and the owner. But we don't specify the use where we had to add bullets on this breakout where we talk about the tasting room typically has live entertainment consisting of 1 or 2 musicians once per week. There are also other events to promote the business. The bands typically are used really for background music. We didn't add all these bullets. There's probably 10 of the bullets that we added for the sections of the business with a statement of use. It's in the document attached to the letter to the town. But we do have the business areas outlined on the plan and what they are. Retail area for gifts, souvenirs, crafts, farm market retail area, greenhouse production area, which hopefully identifies the business use. And then we've kind of broken down more with these 10 bullets. And the store hours match. The store hours on the plan as well.
So what happens in the green areas? The game area?
The gaming area? Yeah, so let me just see if we had it specified in here.
I don't think we included that in there.
The intent of the gaming area is a green space. The seating you can see comes out to it, where that new outdoor table expansion area is, but the green area is not for stand-up table seating area. It's for, his idea was, your
bocce ball and things like that.
Bocce, the board, I can't even draw on a blank now, that everybody plays now at every bistro and tasting room, it feels like. Cornhole, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was looking for. So that sort of thing. And we've kind of skinny that up. And I know we talked a little bit last time of like showing, okay, where's, do we show the cornhole boards? Do we show the bocce? It's just it's a green space. And I also see him using that too for, just getting spread out a little bit now, especially in cases like now. So But that's the intent. I call it green space game area because it's exactly that. I don't think he's not going out there to set up a tent or use it for something like that. It's more for just feeling like a green space in gaming. So
if you review the minutes from the last time we met, we kind of asked for some specifics. I asked for him, the attorney had recommended that you lay out exactly what you're looking to do, so we have it on the record. And I'm not sure we have that. I like the idea.
I just don't know how we can define. So, I mean, John, if you think we can, on the record right now, say you're going to set up some cornhole tables or some cornhole boards and have a little bocce area, or is it, it's just, I mean, the use is, I don't know if it's easily defined in terms of the gaming area or so if we call it a game area, how, what specifics do you need? Do you want to say we plan on having 4 cornhole games or something like that, or is it something, what's that? So, John, I'd like to interject a little bit.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily have an exact plan for that. A lot of times we get a lot of families come in, and really we get a lot of kids. And just to have an area out there, I'm sure we would have, cornhole and have some things like that, but I didn't necessarily, think we would have a exact setup for what we would do all the time. Like, for example, one thing we've done a couple of times is we've had a dog adoption day. That's probably where we would set it up now. And we'll have helping hounds or I forgot the name of some of these. We had like 6 organizations come in, and we might set that up on a Saturday and have dog adoption. That'd be a perfect place for it. And that would be something we would do. That's just an example.
I don't think we need specifics as far as activities, but like if there were leagues that were going to be taking place weekly, that kind of thing.
That isn't in any of the plans yet because I don't really think it's big enough for that. And I haven't given that any thought to do anything like that at this point. I mean, we're just looking for more space for people to have kids run around and play some games. And specifically, we like doing the dog adoption thing, so we'd like to do that a couple times a year.
Right. So, I mean, maybe Mark, if there's something, that can help you. Yeah, go ahead.
Neil, go ahead.
It's Neil. You're dancing around the issue, and the issue really here is, can we look at that plan and see what the uses are, what's enforceable and what's not enforceable? And when I hear things like, well, there's no plan to do it now, one of the things that the planning board is charged with is to kind of look into the future and say, what is this site, what is appropriate for this site now? And if you're going to start making some radical changes in the future from what we've approved, you're going to have to come back in.
Right.
So when you look at your plan,
well,
if I could continue and maybe finish, and then you could go.
Yeah.
If you look at your plan now, I mean, you have hours of operation, Monday through Thursday, Friday through Saturday, Sunday, and then you have like business areas, retail area, gifts, souvenirs, crafts, food, drink items. And what I'm hearing is that we kind of like that tightened up a little bit.
I guess the interjection I'd like to do is, and I know where John's coming from, not knowing exactly, and I'd like to look at it from the other end and say, what would be a use that we would have concern with? And I would agree, if you're starting to have tournaments, let's say, you start and saying you have a night every week where you have a league or something like that, I don't think that's his intent. And maybe that's something that's reduced, maybe that's something that's defined, saying you can have this green space gaming area and you can use it for your overflow of just people, just giving you that green field, a nice fence around it, and having a couple cornhole games set up or some bocce set up. That's hard to define, but you can define it the opposite way and say, but we don't want you to go out there and have 50 teams of a cornhole tournament every week. And maybe that's something that would have to come up in front of you. Maybe that's an easier way to look at it, because I look at it and say, okay, what would be a problem or something that the board would have to reevaluate? And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the reevaluation would come and say you have 25 tables set up out there, and you're having some sort of a tournament or some sort of a league, and maybe that's how you could define it, because of the unknown of it's just a green space game area for kids to run around and have a couple bocce games or a couple cornhole games playing. Is that something, Neil, you guys would consider, just to make it a condition, saying if you can't have a tournament out there, you can't have leagues and stuff like that, because that's a different use that adds a lot of cars, and it could be something different for you guys that would have to reevaluate.
It's really a question of what the planning board's looking for here, whether it's by way of limitation, like X amount of, no more than X amount of people at this area, or however they want to do it. But right now, your plan provides very little as far as a statement that they can go back and look and say, this is what you said when you got your approval, and this is what you're doing now, and there's a difference.
Well, I guess my question would be, what would
go ahead, John.
Yeah, my question would be, what would be something you'd be concerned about? I guess I'm quite confused at what your concern is. What would we be doing that would be a problem?
This is Mark. Let me answer that. What I'm looking for, John, is what you want to do there. And I don't see that reduced in writing on the plan anywhere. You've got a green area, game area. What is that? Mm-hmm. Is it leagues? If it's leagues, I'm not saying I have a problem with leagues. What I'm having a problem with is it's not being defined on the plan in writing. I'm not opposed to you having leagues there or having kids playing bocce ball once a week. But what I want is for you to tell the planning board what it is that you plan on doing. Whether it's that, with the bands, how often the bands, that kind of thing. Let's get it reduced to writing so that we all know. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And I believe, so obviously what I've written here is not detailed enough. Is that what you're looking for, more detail than what I have and that we wrote down here?
What you're doing there. And you know what, if you had bocce ball leagues, I'd probably come and play, but just describe to us what it is that you want to do there in writing on the plans, like we had asked.
Yeah, I think the problem is we don't know, and I don't say I don't know. I think we're telling you it's a green space game area. That's the limit of it. There's nothing more defined than that. And I think I think the better thing is you guys are looking to help define something so you can approve something. And I just don't know if there's a way to define what he's trying to do there, because it's an area. Do we say we have a green space that we can only allow 20 kids playing at? Do we have a green space that only can have 5 games going on? That's where do we go to help define that? Because I'm trying to write it on the plan now. I was like, okay, I got a green space. Do I say there's yard games, which could include bocce, it could include cornhole, and it could include an area that when they have dog adoption days, they would have stuff set up on this green space area for the dogs themselves, but no more than 30 dogs. Is that something that's hard to define for me, other than we're defining the space by fence line, and it's a green space, great game area. And I know, Mark, what you guys are exactly asking is you want to be able to look back in a year from now if he's having a band stage set up over there. You don't think that's not what we're asking for. That's not what we're telling. So it's easier for me to say what can't we have than what can we have, because I think unless you're saying, okay, just show it's a green space area and you want to show the plan is to have yard games, which can include cornhole, bocce, and we plan to have some dog adoption days that would take place in this green space area instead of on the blacktop. Pretty similar to what he does today, right? So he has that green area there today, and I've never been to one, John, but I'm guessing you do it along the parking lot and that type of thing right now. Is what I'm.
Well, right now we haven't really utilized that because it hasn't. This property was just purchased, and we didn't really get it cleared till late last year, so there wasn't. Other than we did set up some tents out there one day for the dog adoption. But other than that, we haven't done anything with the green space yet. So I guess this is kind of evolving, so yeah. I guess I haven't looked at that level of detail with what we're going to do with it, because I didn't think it was necessary to go to that kind of detail of what we're going to do in the green space.
I want to put something on the plan.
I guess I can come up with something that gives more detail. and project kind of what we're going to plan on doing. I'd have to sit down and give that some thought and get more detail on it.
Perfect. Right. And if you review the minutes from our last meeting, we kind of went through this. The same way. Identify based on what your intent is. That's all.
Mark, couldn't he just say that? Mark, couldn't he just say it's an outdoor recreational area for light lawn games during the summer?
Light unorganized.
I mean, I just, right. if we start.
It's the applicant's job to put down in writing their intent. I don't want to do it for them. But
right.
Unorganized games in the green area, that's fine.
We can do that.
Perfect.
Because I did, and I'm looking at the bullet points, and I did not define the green space very well at all. So it's something that we can add to it.
Excellent.
Mark, Don Snyder, don't we usually really want the applicant to think into the future so they don't have to come back? For example, he made mention of, a lot of kids. Well, if in the future they may think about a play area for kids, they could show that on the drawing now. If they're thinking about, if things really go, they're going to have an expansion, they're going to have another building, isn't that kind of what we like to have them dream? And then it helps them in their planning, and it helps not having to come back to us and go through the same process.
John, yeah, this is Mark again. That's a good point. Like, as an example, John, if you were hoping to someday have some bocce leagues there, indicate that. I'm looking for indication what your intent is now and in the future that you want to prove now.
Okay.
And last time we met, we also talked about the wastewater use, and the fact that it wasn't addressed when you were given approval for the brewery, and whether or not that needs to be addressed now. Has there been any conversation?
Yeah, our response to, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
Yes, our response to that one is, so he did work with Aqua back then in regards to getting a permit for what they were doing. It's for adding the bistro and the tasting room. So that was from whatever the date is on this, 2018, I thought. So yeah, October of 18, when they got the plumbing permit for the new, I could call it a new business. I don't know. So I attached that to this letter, and I don't know what further we can do. So if you want us to go back to 2018 and say, has there been an increase in water usage since 2018? In terms of what the planning board thinks, yeah, there probably has been an increase of use since 2018. But in 2018, he approached the Aqua to make sure that they were aware of the new use for the agricultural uses of the bistro and the tasting room. So I attached that permit purposely, saying, okay, so they went remodeling commercial industrial 1 to 20 fixtures and a new water heater. So they feed it that way. So it was on the books. They got the permits from Aqua. I don't know what his other steps would have had to been then with the farm ag stuff, but now I can't say we're adding any more water since 2018, but in 2018, was there more water and waste from 2017 to 2018? I don't know that answer off the top of my head, but I would assume yes. The answer is yes, but Aqua was aware of it too. So I don't know if you need anything further than that, than the letter and kind of the breakdown of how we did it. So.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would defer to Neil or Mark on that topic.
It's our offset is based on the increased use in water, okay? And it would be based on the increased use in water for this project. And they're saying that there is no increase in the use of water for the current project. Now, the question becomes, well, okay, there isn't for this, but they kind of snuck the other activity in where there was an enormous increase in water, I would think. But that didn't come before us. So it wasn't subject to our offset.
Okay, so from our
And
perspective,
I don't think the term is sneaking in anything because
Okay, yeah, no,
I don't think that's the right term at all.
It didn't come before us.
Yeah.
If that came
Wasn't addressed.
before us as part of a site plan because it was a change in use of the property, you would have been forced to project the increase of water and then give us $4 per gallon offset. But it didn't,
Right.
so we're limited to this actual application.
okay, I'm satisfied with that. And then just highlight for me again, as far as band activity and what's going to take place.
So how we spelled it out. Yeah, go ahead, John. You're good.
I'll take that. Typically once a week, occasionally twice a week, and we're like the more background music. We will occasionally have a significant band there that brings in a pretty good crowd, but I don't know if that's the direction that we want to go in on any kind of regular basis. The general 1 or 2 piece band, background music, and my goal is maybe once a month to have a little more popular event that might bring in some more people.
And John,
That's our plan.
That would be each month of the year, 12 months out of the year. You do that basically.
Yeah, generally.
And I've noticed in the past when we had football games that you drew pretty good crowds on Sundays.
No, we don't have televisions.
Really?
No, we don't have televisions. I think Steve and I had this conversation when I first opened this. You kind of choose your clientele, and we chose not to have televisions. And not that I don't like sports by any stretch of imagination, but I don't want a sports gathering place. We want a family, more orientated conversation type of a tasting room, and not a bar, not a sports bar. And that's what we feel like we've achieved, and we want to continue with that.
Yeah, I was just assuming because I noticed on a few Sundays you were really busy. But it was just for
yeah, it can't be because of football, because there's no television. Maybe it's the people that don't want to watch football.
That's all I have. Any other board members, anything since you last spoke?
No, I'm all set.
Mark Parrish, have you got anything? Mr. Parrish. Neil, have you got anything?
No, I'm all set for now.
All right, Steve, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the system kicked me out and changed the microphone when I got back on. So, yeah, no, I don't have anything further.
Steve, anything?
All set, thank you.
So, I think the applicant's got some direction from the conversation today. Correct?
We do. So it sounds like you want us to update these plans. And just to summarize quickly of the updates, we never really, it sounds like add 180A space, take the letter that was provided with the bullets on it and add something with the green space where we just identify the unorganized yard game type use, and just to give you a little bit more definition on that. And then the third thing would be the parking, right? And so we went back and forth on that. I know you guys' stance is no asphalt millings are allowed in parking, but we went back and forth a little bit on that. I didn't know if that was a board discussion that had a final answer. And if it is a final answer, what our next, is there's still some other things we'd look into to limit the just blacktopping the whole site for the event. So we would like to just discuss that a little bit further if we could. Is there kind of a summary on the asphalt discussion?
I think Mr. Snyder was pretty clear. I think a couple of the board members were pretty clear on requiring asphalt. And I kind of concur with them. I'm going to, at this point, I'm leaning towards asphalt. I'm going to go and take a look at the existing setup that you have. But I think at this point, we're looking for asphalt.
My question would be, where do you stop with the pavement? I mean,
Where do you
there is,
stop
you know,
what?
With the
where
pavement?
do you stop with the pavement? Yes.
At the truck turnaround.
You know, there.
Yeah, so the truck turnaround would not be, and it could be Millings because that's not public parking.
That's
You agree
my-
with that?
I would agree with that.
Yes. Mr. Snyder, are you with us?
Don, you got to unmute.
Mr. Bloss, do you concur?
I concur.
Mr. Snyder? Mr. Abbey,
Yes, all set for now.
you agree with the parking?
I'm not, yes. And we have to stay consistent. With the,
So 4 out of 5 are saying the parking for the straight parking would be asphalt and the truck turnaround would be the millings.
Okay.
that would be best.
One last thing, while you guys touched briefly, we didn't define it. We talked briefly about this north entrance. That's really not part of the project that we're talking about in a whole, but it is on the same property. You talked about that north entrance that exists today as gravel. That's a gravel access to their wholesale area. And you saw it pretty well on that Google Earth image. So you mentioned once that you wanted to expand that 40 foot. That's obviously working within the county right away to do that. And is that something we were talking about, but it's not part of this project and we already have the current one paved? So are you satisfied or are you still, you just made a brief comment about that north entrance. I just don't want that to come up in the next meeting.
Well, we do require any entrance on the road, it has that apron put into it. And this is part of that site plan, so it would be required.
Where is that? Is that defined somewhere in your code?
I don't think so.
I think this, well, we certainly require it on all the projects that come before us.
What is the number? How far?
40 feet, I believe.
40 feet from the drive lane, the center, the edge of pavement. If the shoulder's 30 foot, do you go 40 foot from the shoulder? Or do you go 40 foot from the white line?
So it's not in the code, and maybe Mark Parrish would like to comment. My recollection is it's typically, you know, the shoulder and the apron into the site.
Right, but yeah, I just want to define it because it's a pretty wide shoulder there, and I think it's a 10 or a 12 foot shoulder there potentially. So is it from the white line to get you guys comfortable? Is it to the right of way? Like the DOT goes to the right of way, right? Once you get to the right of way line, you can do whatever you want. So that's a DOT requirement, New York State DOT. So is that something that we get to the right of way line? Because I just want to make sure I define it so it's shown correctly. So there's no question about it.
Mark Parrish, can you?
I'd say go 40 feet from the white line. So your edge of pavement.
Right. So it's about 25 to 30 feet of new asphalt.
Yeah, because you do have a pretty wide shoulder there.
Right, and I don't know if it's all the way. It's not to the right of way, obviously, but the right of way is much less than 40 foot from the white line, which is fairly typical with the state DOTs. But so I think that's what will show. I think it's like and John, if you concur, I just got to be careful because the Onondaga County DOT, I just want to make sure we're following their requirements too, just to go pave what we had versus, you know, we're opening up that entrance too for discussion. So we'll just show it meeting the current requirements that we did on the other entrance at 40 foot from the white line.
Yep, and we'll be fine if the county requires more. We're not going to argue with that.
But not if they require less, right?
They won't. Mike, anything else?
I think I appreciate clarifying that. I just wanted to make sure we caught everything. So, you know, I believe that's all I had.
Okay. Well, thank you for your patience. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I'll make sure I get the drawings to you again, so we can get on that agenda. So,
And also add one, you're going to add one more handicap parking space, correct?
Yeah, that was a.
All right, very good. We will move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
This is for Donald Roberts, a zone change recommendation to the town board for the property at State Route 31. Tax map number 072-01-13.3. The applicant with us?
Yes.
Somebody, could you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Go ahead, Derek. Introduce yourself. Didn't know we were supposed to speak, but okay. Introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Don Roberts, trying to sell a property on Route 31.
Across from our house.
It's across from your house?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, we'll go through and see if there's questions for you. Mr. Rosito?
Not right at the moment.
Mr. Abbey?
Also not at the moment. This is the first I've seen it.
This is for a recommendation to the town board, and I presume we're going to make that recommendation this evening. Mr. Snyder? Is Don, did we lose Don?
Don Snyder?
There you are. Hi, Don. Any questions, sir?
Unmute.
Don, you're muted again.
Now?
Now we hear you.
Now, lucky you. It's right now supposedly agriculture and neighborhood commercial. The property, the neighborhood commercial, I mean, is the whole lot got two zones, or the property is partially zoned neighborhood commercial and part of it's ag?
The majority of it is agricultural. A very small portion there at 31 and Bull Road is the residential part. Commercial part, I mean.
Okay, and neighborhood, well, would neighborhood commercial allow us to put the facility that they want to put on this lot, as opposed to changing it all the way to general commercial? I just get scared when we put general commercial. That basically opens the door for almost anything.
I can understand that. I have no idea, to be honest with you. The only thing I can say is that you folks do a pretty good job of going through stuff with a fine-tooth comb. So, you know, I'm sure if whatever she decides to do, you can kind of control that.
Steve?
Yeah, this is Steve. So
what's the difference between neighborhood commercial and general commercial?
So neighborhood commercial is limited to smaller uses that serve the immediate neighborhood. They're typically limited in square footage of building, and again, uses that serve the immediate neighborhood. My understanding of the proposed use, the interested party in purchasing this property wants to have a restaurant. That is not allowed in neighborhood commercial. They would need general commercial zoning to do that. Further, my understanding was that where they want to place this restaurant is not in the portion of the property that is currently zoned neighborhood commercial. It's on Route 31, approximately in the center along the road boundary there.
Okay, I guess that's all for now.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes, I have a question that it might have, you know, somebody might want to look at, is if they do a farm restaurant on there, it might have a bearing on whether, you know, we changed it to a general commercial. Approximate location, is that available to us at this time?
No, not to my knowledge. I have no idea where they want to place it yet. Plans haven't gone through for that proposal or anything, because it kind of is on the bearing of what happens with the getting it changed to general commercial.
Our understanding is that when she goes to define her restaurant, she's going to have to come before you folks and figure out where she's going to place it and if that's acceptable.
Yeah, I understand that. Yes, that definitely, that would have to come before the planning board. I just, at this point in time, I just thought we might be able to have a, you know, somewhat of a location that might help us determine what we're going to do.
Who else is speaking? There's someone else speaking besides Mr. Roberts?
Yeah,
Don Bloss.
No, it's his wife. It's his wife, Lori Roberts.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Is that L-O-R-I?
L-A-U-R-I-E.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bloss, is that everything from you?
Well, I would like to see where that's the way it's zoned now, how far 31 and Bull Street come together. I'd like to see that zone right there, how far, how many feet up each road that it goes. You know, 31 and Bull Street, Bull Road, Bull Street, whichever.
Okay, there's a ditch right there, and that's as far as it goes right there.
Where do you see the?
Okay, I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Okay,
like
if you
that.
look at the survey map,
yeah.
Look at the point there, and there's a line that goes kind of right through there to the left.
Yes.
Not very far up. Right there. Right there.
Okay. Yes.
That triangle right there is the zoning of the neighborhood commercial.
Neighborhood commercial. Okay, so not very much of it then.
No.
Okay, I think you've answered my question.
That's why they were trying to get it changed general commercial.
Yes, the rest would be changed general commercial.
Right, this is Mark Marzullo again. So to Mr. Snyder's point, we really are not looking at whatever the proposed use is for this site. We are looking at zone change. And the question is, under general commercial and all of the allowable uses within that district, is this a good spot for that? So that's the question we have to ask. Not whether or not a restaurant's good here, but whether or not all of the allowable uses within a general commercial would make sense at this location. And that's the decision that the town board has to make. They will be doing a public hearing, and they are asking for a recommendation from the planning board. So, gentlemen, I guess I would ask, are you in a position tonight to vote on this, or would you like some time to kick it around a little bit?
Snyder's ready to vote.
Bloss is ready to vote.
Neil, do we need a secret?
No, you don't, because it's just a recommendation.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I can do it for you. I'm going to make a positive motion. They can vote however you want. It's moved for the adoption of a resolution recommending the zone change application known as Donald Roberts State Route 31 tax map number 72111.3 agriculture to general commercial.
That's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bloss. We'll take a roll call. Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
That was a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to the next item.
So what's that mean?
We made a positive recommendation to the town board for a zone change. All right. He's muted. Next item on the agenda is for the amended site plan. This is A&P Marina at 7512 West Murray Drive. This was in front of the planning board some time ago, and the applicant is now required to bring it back. I believe they've submitted the same application. Is there a representative here for the applicant?
His mic is off.
Mr. Atkins, your mic is on mute.
Working on it.
Hear me now?
Hear you now.
Okay.
I'd like to tell the board what's going on here.
Yes, I attempted to buy some
Judy.
property. What? Hi, Judy.
Oh my.
The site plan, I attempted to buy some land from David Horowitz to the southwest of us. That deal never materialized. I want to move the main entrance off of Murray to Lakeshore Road. That's why we didn't finish the job. The job has been started. We just didn't finish it. And the site plan expired. I think I had it renewed once or twice. I'm not sure.
So can you kind of review what it is that you want to do differently now?
If you see the map in front of you where it comes in here off of Murray, the road Broadhead Drive comes off of Murray Drive.
Yep.
Then you go to the southwest of the property where the new building was proposed. There was an old house in there owned by David Horowitz. And I had an agreement to buy it from them and it fell through. I was going to bring the road off of Lakeshore into the front of that new building. So now we're back to the same plans. It's not going to materialize. There's no changes. It's the same exact site plan I had originally.
All right, questions from the board. Mr. Rosito.
So basically, we're just starting the process over again if it had already expired?
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that.
Anything else, Joe?
Nope.
Mr. Abbey?
No, all set, thanks.
Mr. Snyder?
I think the facility is great. The only thing I looked at is there was a shed that is proposed to be moved, but I don't believe it showed on the drawing where it was going to be moved to. That's the only thing I found that needed to be looked at.
Which shed are you talking about? We're taking the old barn down, and then the office is coming down also to the right. They're being torn down.
You say exterior EXG temp storage structure to be relocated.
Oh, no, that's gone. I'm sorry. That's gone. No longer here.
Okay. Well, I only can deal with what I got. So
I got you. No, that's long gone. That's gone.
Okay. And you're going to get rid of the shop?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Don. Mr. Bloss?
Yeah, I'm all set at this time. He's answered, several questions that I was thinking about. And no, I'm all set.
Thank you. I'm all set as well. Neil, have you got anything at this point?
No.
Mark Parrish?
No, nothing here.
Steve?
All set, thank you.
Mike Maurizio, anything?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Okay. All right, so Mark, are we going to get comments out to them, or what's the plan here? Since we've already done this, or Neil?
Well, it looks like the application for this was done as an amended site plan. So, and if nothing's changed, I don't know that you need a review. Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't really compared this to the previously approved site plan. It's been some time since that was done. So, but again, it was done as an amended site plan application.
Right. Neil, thoughts?
You could, if you're in a position, if you feel that you have all the information you need to act, you could act, or you could postpone it to the next meeting. It's up to you.
I'm comfortable with moving forward if the rest of us are. Do we need a seeker?
Yes.
Joe, would you propose the standard seeker, please?
Yes, I propose our standard seeker, and that's in the form of a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second by Snyder.
Do a roll call. Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes, seeker passes. And then Neil, would you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as AP Marina 7512 West Murray Drive, proposed new building, Kevin Atkins. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following. One, the color schemes and renderings and or elevations as presented by the applicant to the planning board in regard to this application shall be incorporated by reference into the site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the actual project must substantially conform to the items as presented herein.
That's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rosito. We'll take a roll call. Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. And good luck with that.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
You do the same. Next item on the agenda is Langlo Realty Corp. This is for Broadwalk Commons. It's in front of us not that long ago, and they're looking to do a modification to the proposed facade and signage. And who's here? Craig, are you here representing the applicant?
I'm here as well as Ed Keplinger. Since Ed was here before you, he can kind of take the lead.
Go ahead.
This is Ed Keplinger, Keplinger Freeman Associates. As you recall, the original project was approved in September 2019. We had an anchor tenant of Convenient MD, and they pulled out of the deal. Now the developer wants to still renovate the building. We've looked at reconfiguring the spaces to provide 5 equal spaces for potential tenants. If you go to drawing A 1.3, we can review the facade changes. If you recall, the might be in the architectural set. Or we could stay here and just review the site changes real quick and then go to the architectural.
That's fine.
The site changes were very minor. We reconfigured the sidewalk at the south end of the building. And then in the back of the building along the wetland buffer, this would be the far left-hand side of the sheet, we made some changes to the landscaping and drainage. This was in coordination with obtaining the DEC wetland permit. They were very minor. We added some trees and shrubs, and then we added a little depression at the end of the storm pipe. But those were the site changes. Would you be able to pull up drawing A 1.3 that shows the facade changes? But essentially what the facade changes were removing that large architectural structure that was at the left-hand side of the building. And now the building's facade's been made symmetrical. We've added a stone veneer at the ends and at the base of the building. We've added clapboard between the windows. There's an awning. A lot of it's similar to what was there, but we've now unified the facade, and it's a symmetrical looking building facade. If you go back to the cover sheet, you can see there's a architectural rendering of what the building will look like. So there's the proposed facade. And then there was the last change. If we go back to A 1.3 is just the monument sign. Instead of having Convenient MD and then 2 tenant sign panels, there's now 5 equal tenant sign panels. So that's really the summary of the changes. Any questions?
I have a question on the signage, Chuck. Were the signs going to plan to be interior lit?
Craig, do you have the answer for that? You're still on mute.
Here we go. I believe the original was to be interior lit, so this would be as well. But if that needed to change, we could probably change that. It's really to get a presence on the road there, so people.
Sure. Were you planning any exterior lighting for the sign?
Exterior lighting. If it's interior lit, there would be no need for exterior lighting.
Right.
Ed, I don't think you had anticipated anything.
Okay.
We didn't. No.
Who's speaking now?
I was speaking. This is Craig Polhamus. I'm the architect. And Ed Keplinger, who's a landscape architect.
How do you spell your last name, Craig?
Oh, Polhamus.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'd be nice to get some businesses in there. That's a very nice spot, and that's been sitting vacant too long.
Absolutely.
It has been. The developer's excited to get this going.
Great.
Craig, Don Snyder, you would entertain somebody taking 2 of the 5 spaces, would you not, as opposed to, or are you always only going to look at people that can fit in 1 of your spaces?
No, they want to have the flexibility that if somebody wanted 2 of the bays, they could do so. And we would allocate the signage area accordingly and, deal with that as it came. Right now, there are no leases signed. The owner is looking to do this on a speculative basis. He concurs that the building has been sitting way too long and there's a need to refurbish it to kind of draw in the tenants that he's looking to put in there.
Good. It makes it's definitely an improvement, and I'm glad you have the flexibility because there may be vendors that in fact could use 2 or 3 of the spaces as opposed to just 1. Good idea.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Mr. Rosito, any questions?
No, I'm all set.
Mr. Bloss, anything at this point?
No, I'm all set.
Mark, are you going to review that? I mean, this is a pretty simple change that you need to review.
Again, yeah, I believe this was done as a amended or updated site plan. So
you're good?
Yep.
Neil?
I'm all set.
Steve?
All set, thank you.
Mike?
I'm all set.
Neil, we'll need the seeker.
Yes, we do.
Joe, would you propose a standard seeker, please?
Yes, I proposed our standard seeker.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll give a second to Mr. Bloss. Roll call, Mr. Rosito.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. The seeker passes. Neil, could you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as Langlo Realty Co. LLC, Boardwalk Commons, 7851 Brewerton Road and 5643 West Circle Drive, proposed building facade and signage. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following. 1, the color schemes and renderings and or elevations as presented by the applicant to the planning board in regard to this application shall be incorporated by reference into the site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the actual project must substantially conform to the items as presented herein.
That's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rosito. Roll call, Mr. Rosito.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Good luck, gentlemen.
I just had one further comment for the developer.
Go ahead, Joe.
You might want to consider talking to the state about that light if you're coming off from West Circle Drive, which I've done many times, going to turn north. When the light changes green for yourself, you don't know when people coming at you, they have it red, but you don't know that. So you're hesitant to turn left in front of people coming right at you. So that traffic light needs an adjustment for that situation.
Yeah, we have a similar situation like that in Fayetteville.
Really?
People tend to get used to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See what we can do.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Good luck. Last item on the agenda is for Brandon Martuscello, I hope. This is for the property at 9410 Birch Tree Road, home occupation. Brandon with us?
I'm here.
Hello, Brandon.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. Like to review with the board what you're proposing to do, please?
I'm simply requesting approval for a home occupation permit. I'm in the process of attaining an FFL license.
And we'll go through and see if there's questions from the board. Mr. Rosito?
Not at the moment.
Mr. Abbey?
Not at the moment, but FFL, unless you read it, you wouldn't know what it was to do with firearms. So, no more than that at that time.
I'm sorry, what was the last part, Chuck?
To do with firearm dealing. But look forward to next time.
Mr. Snyder?
I have no comment. I'm ready to vote.
Mr. Bloss?
I'm all set at this time.
Brandon, I just have one question. You had mentioned that there'd be very little traffic, some UPS vehicles and that kind of thing. When it comes to the delivery of the firearm, does the customer visit you or do you bring it to the customer?
Either way, typically the ATF likes to see the customer come to you. I anticipate very low traffic. You can't attain a license primarily for gun shows or online sales. However, that's going to be my primary source. So I have to open up the availability to have people to my house, basically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, how would you estimate the number of transactions over a period of time?
If I have 2 a week, that's a lot.
Would it be by appointment only or just anytime they want to stop?
Strictly by appointment.
Okay.
Mark, have you got any input at this point? Mark Parrish?
No.
No review on this, right? From your perspective?
That's correct.
Neil, anything?
No, nothing, no.
Steve?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mike?
I'm all set, thanks.
Neil, does the home business need a seeker?
Yes.
Joe, would you propose the standard seeker, please?
Yes, I propose our standard seeker, and that's a form of a motion.
Do you have a second? Do you have a second to the seeker?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bloss. Roll call, Mr. Rosito.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey.
Yes, but does this need a public hearing?
No.
No, okay. Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Seeker passes. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, we're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as Brandon J. Martuscello, 9410 Birch Tree Road, proposed home occupation. And that would be in the form of a motion.
That's in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rosito. Roll call, Mr. Rosito.
Yes.
Mr. Abbey.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Brandon, good luck with that.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Yep.
That concludes our agenda items. Is there any discussion from the board?
We are paid tonight.
Our next meeting is June 3rd. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? I will second that.
Snyder, let us out.
Meeting is adjourned. Good night, all.
Wait,
Good night. Good night.
Who made the motion?
The motion to adjourn was Mr. Blas, correct?
Yes.
And who seconded?
Mark. I did. Mark.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good night, everybody.